Once you understand the life cycle of a varroa mite, it's much easier to understand how the products work in correlation to that. If you see any mites throughout your monthly washes, like, you should probably be thinking about doing something.
Normally I would use a smoker, but I could also use Apimil, and I'm just gonna be spraying this. So you're normally just taking this and you're just gonna split it in half for this colony size. You're just going to be entering this into the colony.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathleen. I'm Kathleen Ireland. I'm from Ontario, I'm from Lakefield, Ontario. Yeah, I've been beekeeping for, I don't know, over 12 years now. I can't really remember how long. And basically I spent the first decade of my career just traveling around the world doing beekeeping, New Zealand, Australia, all over Europe, teaching, how to figure out how to do IPMs, Varroa control. I worked specifically on the Mite Away Quick Strips and the Formic Pro development and research. And then that kind of led me to Andermatt, who was one of our distributors in Europe. And they also do Varroa control products as well. But we're also a bigger agriculture company. So we have multiple segments that we deal with, and like one of them is forestry, one of them is ag, and then one of them is beekeeping. So I specialize in the beekeeping side, but I also manage all the agriculture and forestry for domestic sales here in Canada. So we have 24 sister companies across the globe, and we all kind of work together. Everyone has a specialty, and we bring that all together. But yeah, we have one segment that is the honeybee health, and that's kind of our sister company in Switzerland is kind of the main producer of all of our products. So that's where we get most of our stuff here in Andermatt Canada is actually from our Swiss sister company who produces it. So a little bit, this is my hobby yard in Ontario, and this is our newest yard actually that we have. So we range anywhere between like 15 right down to 2 colonies sometimes. Sometimes we sell a lot of our colonies just because we get a little busy because we've got 2 very small kids. This is my son Roman. He started beekeeping with us when he was 2, and he's really good. He's really great at queen spotting, and he's little dexterous hands. They're really good. Kids are really awesome to have in the field. So I've been beekeeping pregnant multiple times now. Not always fun, a little hot, but always a good time. We have a lot of fun. My daughter Ailish just started. This is her first year. She's 3. She's been in the bee yard in a playpen from birth, but this is her first time actually getting to like hold frames. Her new job is like smoking, things like that. So this is what we do. So what I talk about today is what we do as a family and the IPM and all these products that we use and how we use them. So feel free to ask questions at any time. We focus primarily on honey production, and it's very small honey production, obviously, because my husband and I both have full-time jobs and we both travel for work. So we're always minimizing the beekeeping side of things just because we run out of time. So I talked about who Andermatt was and kind of like all the different segments that we handle here in Canada. For the beekeeping side of things, we have a small range of products that I'm going to talk to you about today. So we have the Thymovar, which is our flagship Varroa control product, and it is a thymol product. We have Apimil, and this is our kind of alternative for smoke, but also a pheromone suppressant. So you can use it for, if you're going into colony, maybe aggressive colony, you can use it to suppress those pheromones of like alarm. If you're combining colonies or you're introducing a new queen, any kind of reason that you would need to suppress pheromones, Apimil could be used for. But generally, when just going into a colony to do an inspection, if you didn't want to use smoke or your smoker goes out, or you're like me in Ontario where I can't light a smoker right now because it's too dangerous, Apimil is an alternative and it's all natural. So I will talk to you about that. We have the Varrox line, which we have a Varrox Eddy, which is kind of like our kind of all-in-one battery operated oxalic acid vaporizer. And then we have kind of the original Varrox vaporizer that is hooked up to a 12-volt battery. And just as like a sidebar, we have this crossover product called biopollen. It goes on as a pollination stimulant or enhancer. So we have a lot of growers that also have bees. So like if you have blueberries or cherries or apples, canola, anything like that, this is our one like ag beekeeping product that kind of blurs the lines. And we've had really great success with that this year. So increases yield basically because it entices the bees to be on the blooms. So it's a pollination enhancer. So yeah, these are some of the products I'll go over today. And to start, I'm going to talk about Varroa control. I'm going to show you a video. It is now not my video, however I made it. So it is actually a nod video that we made, but it's really good, especially as a new beekeeper. If you're trying to understand Varroa, you really need to understand it in terms of life cycle management, because once you understand the life cycle of a Varroa mite, it's much easier to understand how the products work in correlation to that and when and how you should be using them. So we made this life cycle of the Varroa mite video. You may have seen it before. It is a quick video, so I will play it.
We'd like to introduce you to the Varroa mite. Well, to be precise, we'd like to introduce you to millions of Varroa mites. Why so many? Well, when it comes to the Varroa mite, there's no such thing as just one. And if you'd like to see how an infestation starts, you need to look no further than your own bees, especially drones, as they're pretty social and like to travel between hives. Since Varroa mites don't have any wings of their own, they slip into hives by hitching a ride on the backs of adult bees. And for the lucky mite, the trip includes an in-flight meal, as Varroa mites will begin feeding on honeybees' fat body tissue within a few minutes of clinging to the bee. Once they've entered the hive, Varroa mites slip undetected into the vulnerable, uncapped brood cells. This is where the mites lay in wait until the bees cap the brood. Once a cell is capped, the mother mite, like a tiny spider, climbs atop the cocoon of the developing bee, tears open a hole, and begins to feed on its fat body tissue. Within 3 days, the mother mite lays her first egg, which always develops into a male. Then, she lays one female egg every 30 hours over the next week or so in her newly acquired home under the brood cap. And as each of these female mites mature, they mate with their brother. By the time the baby bee develops and leaves its infested cell, as many as 3 fertilized mites will emerge with it, and the cycle continues. Using this strategy, the Varroa mite population can grow as fast as the bee population it feeds on. But when summer ends and the bee population declines, the hive is left with a huge mite population, and that's dangerous. Too many mites in a hive will overwhelm and kill entire bee colonies. So what does that mean for everyone's favorite insect, the honeybee? Well, honeybee colonies with heavy mite infestations can't effectively pollinate or produce honey because they suffer from diseases and viruses transmitted by the mites. In fact, honeybees suffer from as many as 20 different mite-induced viruses.
That's a great video. It took many, many moons to create that video, and it was a labor of love, but it really does kind of delve down into like the timing. And the major takeaway I think of that is for us here in Canada, like our major treatment time is at the end of summer. And that's when we start to see the bee population decreasing. And that's when mites tend to kind of skyrocket. So that's kind of what we would call a critical treatment window. And that's kind of where a lot of products fit in but you have to kind of time it correctly. Otherwise your mite treatments can't keep up to the growing mites and the reducing bees kind of thing. One thing I think it was from the last season of like conferences that we attend, there used to be this like 3%. If you had 3% mites, you would want to do something. That has evolved, and now they're saying if you see any mites, you should really be doing something. So you should be monitoring, and when we say monitoring, you should probably be doing alcohol washes. It's not the best thing to, like, it's not the ideal, but it's the best metric we have at current of kind of understanding how many mites are within our colonies. Now keep in mind, you know, you're only seeing about 20% of the phoretic mites that are on the backs of bees. 80% of those mites are actually underneath those cappings. So you're only getting this. So if you see any mites, basically, it's a profound issue underneath your brood potentially, whereas you're only getting this little wee snapshot of what we're seeing in our alcohol wash. Like if I did this wash today, I just about dropped dead because that's like a dead hive. But so we say now it's like a 1%, but I say like if you see any mites throughout your monthly washes, like you should probably be thinking about doing something. And there's various things that we could be doing. And I'll walk you through some of those. So I have various IPMs that I have, and I'm going to talk to you about each one of them. So this one specifically is for honey production. So if you have, let's say, an overwintered colony that has survived the winter, and you're going in and your main focus really, well, one is keeping those bees alive, maybe at this point in time because you're within your first couple years of beekeeping, but maybe you would also like some honey at the end of the day because that makes you feel good, and it's delicious. So this is an IPM that we can look at that could be an option. So in the winter months, I use oxalic acid. Because you want to use that when you have no brood, little to no brood, because it doesn't work well on massive mite loads, but it also doesn't work on anything under the calf brood. So it's kind of my phoretic treatment in the dormant season, which is basically from like October. Now for you guys, and it might actually, would you start with oxalic a little bit earlier potentially? Like,
you could.
Yeah, like Thanksgiving
right
weekend?
Now we're still seeing a lot of calf brood in through October.
Oh, okay, yeah, because it's warmer longer. Yeah, see, I wasn't able to even use my oxalic till after Christmas this past year because we still had brood. She was laying. So yeah, you kind of need to, again, like figure out what your season is, and it changes every year. Whatever you did last year may not be what you do next year. That's kind of the goal. So oxalic is something that I use though throughout the winter. Normally I get in absolutely from February into like March and April I'm doing, and that's kind of like this period. This is like my late fall, like if I can get in, like years ago I used to be able to get in around Thanksgiving and start using oxalic, but now I'm more or less getting in here. Then depending on when your honey season starts, there's a couple options that you can do. So Thymovar is a product that needs to not be used with honey supers. So you need a long runway to be able to use it. So with Thymovar, if you have a longer runway in your springtime where the temperatures are like above brood, like cluster point, so above like 10, 12 degrees where they're flying, you could go in with Thymovar if you had like a 21-day period or even a 42-day period before honey supers go on. Now in Ontario, I tend to struggle with this one to have Thymovar on because we don't really get a spring in Ontario. We're kind of like winter and then we go like straight into summer mode. So my honey supers are going on quite quickly after the bees start flying. So I don't really have a great range to use a product that I can't use with honey supers on. So sometimes my IPM looks a little different, and this Thymovar would be replaced with Formic Pro because I can use Formic Pro with honey supers on. So it kind of just depends on your seasonality and your mite loads and kind of how much time you have to work with each product. And then we come down to like the fall, and again, so my bees are producing honey. I usually pull a spring honey, middle summer honey, and then a fall honey. So it just depends again on what you're doing, and if you've got like wax drawn out, simple things like that that make a big difference around your beekeeping style, especially in the first couple years. So middle of August, absolutely. Like second week of August, I'm monitoring for mites, and I'm looking at my range and deciding on what product I'm going to use and when I'm going to apply it, because that's when my bees are going to start to go into kind of like rearing the winter bees, and the mites are going to start to explode. So it's paramount to kind of knock those mites down right then and there, which I talked to Robert and he said for you guys is August 15th. You're basically treating for the fall on August 15th. So that's one IPM strategy if you're a honey, like seeking honey production kind of thing. If you are doing early bee production, so again, if your goal is not to make honey, but you're selling bees, or you want to grow your yard. Hey, I have one colony today, but I want to make a couple splits this year, and that's my goal, is actually to grow my yard. So bee production is my strategy this time. You have a lot longer runway with something like Thymovar because you're not seeking honey production. So you can do the full 42-day treatment without any issues. Again, you're probably treating with oxalic in the winter. And again, just for rotation purposes, you might be then looking at a Formic Pro in the fall because, you've already used Thymovar potentially in the spring. So, we have to kind of rotate things just for resistance purposes. But also for strategy, it's just good because sometimes if you've got really high mite loads potentially in that fall period, like August 15th, if I went out and I shook and I came out with like more than 4 mites, let's say, for my sample, I might be like, okay, I need to make a drastic decision and it needs to happen like today. I don't have 42 days for that treatment to work. Formic Pro is a 14-day treatment. So it's much quicker. So, it's just gauging each one of these products and trying to figure out, what am I trying to do? How do I need it to work? And does it fit with what I'm trying to achieve overall? So for bee production, things can look like this. If you have like a new nuke or you're doing splits, so this is a little caveat, new nukes should come from a producer clean. Should. Not will, but should. So you should be doing an alcohol wash on new nukes, packages, whatever you're getting, a couple weeks after you have them, just to make sure that they are in fact healthy, good to go, that you don't need to do anything. So if I did get a nuke, and this is like my dormant season, and I got a new nuke, May, June, you guys are getting new nukes? Beginning of June, June. So by that point, and it should be coming clean, you may not have to do anything for a little while. But because that new nuke, may not be a honey producer the first year, you could probably go in and use Thymovar because you don't have honey supers on. So you could actually use it mid-season, so long as your temperatures were in line. This is something that a lot of our bee breeders do actually in Ontario. We have quite a few of our distributors actually that are bee breeders, and this is one of their main treatments that they do. And then they go in with a Formic Pro for fall, and then again, start the oxalic. So then if you did this with your new nuke, you might come back, and this is your second year. So then you're going in with an overwintered nuke, you're doing your oxalic, you're good to go kind of thing, and then you're rolling up to your spring treatment again. So your new nukes look a little different than those overwintered colonies that have survived a winter. So there's a little bit of like different IPM strategies that can be used. And basically the main things that you want to think about is how much time do I have and how serious is my mite load. and what are my temperatures. Those are kind of the guidelines that I think will guide you in a decision on what product would make sense. So I'll talk a little bit in detail on Thymovar itself and what that product is. So it is a phoretic mite treatment. So like that video showed us, there is our frames, and on the frames we have all of our brood in here. Anything under cap brood, Thymovar is not able to penetrate that wax capping. So it's just able to kill those mites that are on the backs of the honeybees. So we call that a phoretic mite. And so this treatment then, it needs to be a long treatment because we're following then this 21-day life cycle of the baby bee, so that we're getting those mites as they emerge on the backs of the baby bees, and we're able to kill all those mites as they emerge. So that's why we're doing 2 sets of 21-day treatments. So it's a full 42-day treatment, and you're going in twice. So and there's kind of a range of temperatures that can be used. So you want it to be above that cluster point. So, ideally around 12 degrees, bees are flying then. 10 degrees, bees are unclustered. They're not necessarily flying at 10 degrees though. So 12 degrees they're normally flying. And I would say like 12 degrees, but not at like, oh, it reached 12 at like 1 p.m. for an hour. No, like most of the day. Let's try and get like fairly like good bee flight. So they're flying most of the day, not just like that 1 hour that we're reaching, maybe in like April or something like that where it gets a little chilly. Highest point you want to use this product at is 30 degrees. Over 30 degrees, the bees will start to overfan. And that can be a problem because we don't want them to overheat just trying to get the fumes out. So you want to make sure it stays below that 30-degree mark. Thymovar is an all-natural product, but it does leave residues in honey. So it's not organically certified for honey use. However, it doesn't leave any residues in wax or anything like that. So it is actually organically certified, just not during honey flow. So yeah, you want to use this product for 21 days and then again repeat that 21-day mark, and then it can be used on a various like hive styles. So if you run double brood chambers, you are going to use 2 of the 1 strips, and then if you run single brood chambers, you're going to take a strip and then cut it in half. And then if you've got nukes and swarms, again, it's just the 1/2. And so it is very like customizable depending on like what style of colony you have. And again, so if you've got a yard, you might have some that are doubles. You might have some that are singles. You might have a new nuke in there. That's a commonality in bee yards is not everything is one size. So it's nice to have flexibility when using a Varroa control, because the one thing that you'll hear from manufacturers, from distributors is whatever you're doing, you need to treat the entire yard. So you need to do everything at once because bees are very social and they will drift back and forth. So if you are only treating the one colony, anything that's going on maybe in that other colony or a neighbor's colony, unfortunately, is going to make its way back to yours. So it is nice to have something so customizable like Thymovar for that reason, where you can just cut that wafer down to make it kind of work. They are sold in 10-pack strips. So again, it's like 2 packages of 5 on either side, but it has a 4-year manufacturer expiration date. So it is very like long lasting. But because so many of you do have so small of like colonies in your yards, it's also awesome to like come together and maybe find a friend, and you can always like buy treatments that way together as well, just to kind of use them up quickly.
Or you can all just buy your own.
Or you can just do that. Yes.
Actually, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you open that 5 strip pack
Yes.
and then reseal it? And
Yes.
it's still good?
You could, but don't. No, but you could.
Yeah, just buy new ones every time.
Yeah, sure.
But no.
But you could, don't tell regulatory. Yes.
So does the label say not to do that?
No.
Okay.
Is there any way that's best to reseal it? Like, should you seal it?
If you have a heat sealer like that, I wouldn't put it in a separate bag. Like a Ziploc is not going to contain it. It really should be like a heat seal. And like the package that it's in is like that foil pack is like specific to keeping the wafers and like the thymol like in there. We did hear about a gentleman in Quebec that was maybe like repackaging and it wasn't going so well. So, I mean, yeah. So like a heat sealer that's what they use in Switzerland. So, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Some things to keep in mind, hive entrances should be like the standard width. So, is this a standard? This has like an entrance reducer on it. So you would have to like remove this entry as well, just to kind of give it like the standard width. Are these like a bit of a shallow one too? Like a bit of a okay, well that I run 9 frames too, so that's fine. This entrance though, it's a bit like narrow-ish.
Yeah, it's short.
It's short, yeah. I think it would be fine. Like a lot of the European colonies are kind of like that too. Something like this though with Formic Pro would be a little bit of a red flag. Like you'd want a lot more air than that in there. So you'd want to tilt that one back for Formic Pro.
Yeah, there's a screen bottom board on that.
A screen bottom board, yeah. So for most products, you're going to want to close off screen bottom board. So make sure they're closed because a lot of these treatments are heavier than air. So they will just dump out the bottom if you have your screen bottom board open. So you're going to want to close off that screen bottom board. You don't have to put on a solid bottom board, just like those corrugated plastic inserts. If you don't have one anymore, there's like a political race going on. Just take those. Those are great for inserts. The other thing is like upper entrances, I would close them off during treatment. It's not gonna cause too many issues if it is open, but I would just close it off if you can. The queens also, it's totally normal for them to shut down during treatment for like 1 to 2 days, especially at the start of treatment. So yeah, if you see that, like you would notice that in your brood pattern. So you'll be like, oh, the queen stopped laying for a time period, and that's normal. By the time you get back into your colony and stuff, she's going to be back into doing whatever she needs to do. So that's not a big issue, but it is common to see that. The other major question we get is on feeding. Because of that critical time when we're treating for colonies, there's a lot going on at the end of a season. We're pulling honey, the bees are decreasing their brood and the mites are increasing. We're trying to get treatments on. We're pulling that honey. We got to turn around and we got to feed. There's just so much going on at that time of year. And with Thymovar, it has been shown that if you have an in-hive feeder, so something like this, like if you have buckets maybe you put on top, or you've got a feeder that goes like on the front of your colony, anything in the colony, the bees will be unlikely to touch during the first at least like week or so of treatment. There's just so many fumes going on in there, and it kind of puts them off the taste of that sugar water, and they probably won't take it. So my recommendation is typically, if you have the time, what I do is I'll put my Thymovar on, and then the third week of the treatment, which is when I'm switching basically, so day like 21 is when I'm supposed to be switching and putting on my second dosing. I'm going in and feeding, and I'm giving that a couple days, and then I'm gonna go in and treat. So I give the bees a couple days to take some feed down in between those two treatments. So I'm kind of delaying my treatment a little bit, if you have time. Now, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, they have talked to me, again, this is off-label regulatory, shh. I'm looking at the camera because they're recording this. we have talked with the tech transfer teams there, and because their season is so short at the end of the year, again, they're getting into like winter much quicker. They're actually shortening the treatment down to like 14 days, and then they're retreating day like 15. So if you have a very short window there, that is also something that they are doing and trialing it. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So, I mean, tech transfer started doing that about a year ago, and I've heard good things so far. So, yeah, so that's also an option too, if you need to be a little creative. But yeah, so I'm typically like delaying my second treatment by like a day or so, just to give them time to take that feed down. And again, I normally feed with liquid sugar. So I'm going in and filling these up with liquid sucrose 2-to-1 at that time of year. But again, if maybe you're leaving honey on, like there's lots of alternatives also to feeding. What do they push out here? What do you guys have? Do you have a really hard honey that's hard for them to take down at that time of year? Like we have goldenrod, which is really hard.
Yeah, so a lot of boxes will be full of canola honey, which will
crystallize, yeah, real fast. So they want to feed, yeah, so you're pulling everything and feeding liquid sucrose. Okay, yeah, so that's also the same for us. Like we have goldenrod and it crystallizes right in the comb. So we don't want that, because then the bees have to work harder, use up more carbohydrates doing thermogenesis in the winter time to heat that nectar up to then eat it. So again, it's kind of like getting rid of the benefit kind of thing, because they're working extra hard just to try and get it out. So yeah, liquid sucrose is obviously a better alternative for that. One other product, just because I have to talk about, is Thymovar. It has the same active ingredient as Thymovar. You guys carry it, don't you? You don't? Okay, well, bless you. That's good. Yeah, good job. Yeah. So this is. It does not work. I kind of have to say that, but actually the research shows us it doesn't work. If you were to look at it like efficacy-wise, we're into like the mid 80s for efficacy over Varroa, and Thymovar, which has like 3. It's also more labor intensive. You have to go in 3 times, so it's like just a lot more work to work with it. But it doesn't work as well. But it does have the same active as well as some other essential oils in there as well. It's manufactured in Italy, so it's brought over from Italy to Canada. But it just doesn't have kind of like the same efficacy, and it's just a lot more work. And it's a lot more expensive too, I guess. So that's just a little wee comparison that, I have to do. Before I get into Varrox, is there any questions on Thymovar? I am going to show you guys out in the hives, like how to work with this and what it looks like and everything like that. But if there is any questions.
When you showed the double, you had 2 pads on.
Yes, it's 2 pads.
Put it on the top one? Or?
Yeah, so you don't have to crack down. So that's another thing you don't have to do. Yeah, so you can just put it on the top of the second brood chamber. So yeah, you don't have to go down into that bottom box. Which is a little bit less labor intensive, obviously. Yeah. All right. So Varrox, this is kind of like the OG vaporizer. So again, this is a unit. It's a tool, and this is used during broodless periods, and it's a device that's hooked up to a 12-volt battery. And this is the crucible that you would put your oxalic acid into. It does have a little scoop on the bottom that you can just scoop your oxalic and put it in. I would 100% always recommend, yes, you can buy oxalic acid at like any hardware store, except it has lots of other byproducts in that oxalic acid, whereas the oxalic acid you're buying through like a distributor is actually a registered for like honeybee hives. So again, like if your wax is coming in contact with honey at all, you want to make sure that there's nothing in there, like lead, let's say, anything like that. So always make sure you're buying the product that's registered for use when working with chemicals like this. That's just my recommendation. So this is a tool. So what you would need, you need your 12-volt battery, you need your oxalic acid. Oxalic acid is incredibly dangerous. It is a crystal, it is a vapor, and so it will, if you inhale it, it will get in and really shred your lungs. It can have really nasty effects. So be very, very careful when working with it. You want to make sure that you have a mask when working with oxalic acid and vaporizing, and anyone within your close vicinity is also kind of aware of what's happening, because not that it happens so much with this unit, but if you're getting into a larger unit, there is sometimes like some off-gassing in the air and stuff that occurs. So the Varrox, you kind of, it heats up, you stick it in this front entrance here, and you would stuff the remainder of the entrance with some cloths, just so the vapor's not exiting the hive, but staying within it, and close off screen bottoms, close off the entrances at the top, and you're letting it heat up for, like 2 to 3 minutes. And then you're kind of, once it's done, you're pulling it out, closing the remainder of the colony with more cloth, leaving it for about 10 minutes just so those vapors kind of penetrate the whole area. And then you can kind of move on and do the next colonies. So typically as one is going, I'm prepping my next colonies by stuffing the entrances and stuff. So yeah, there's lots of, this oxalic acid is probably becoming like the most popular Varroa control because it's very inexpensive. I just bought like a very large tub of oxalic acid, and I think it was like $30 or something, and it'll probably last me until it expires. Like it's so much. So it's very, very inexpensive. I think like each treatment, you're probably looking at maybe like $1, maybe even less, like 40 cents. Not really sure. It's very inexpensive. The tools themselves are kind of your investment, but it's a one-time purchase. So I think this one is like $189, so like $190 for this unit retail. Robert can confirm that when he gets back. But yeah, it's definitely becoming very, very popular because of how inexpensive the oxalic is on the market. So it is a really great use. It has a really high efficacy, oxalic acid does, during the broodless period. So again, if you do have mites, when we talk about that critical treatment time, and then we're looking at like the dormant stage, that can become really, really important for treatment, because if there's neighboring colonies around you that may be crashing after the mites have kind of like taken over that colony, they're going to start to come into your, those bees are going to start to rob out your colonies, and they're going to start to mingle. And so you'll get like this reinfestation kind of spike all of a sudden in the fall. So oxalic can be a really great tool to kind of knock down for like during reinfestation times as well. And then in like the early spring, like I love to use it almost as like kind of like peace of mind. I'll go in, we'll get like a bit of like a Chinook kind of in February. We get like about a week where it's, about like 5 degrees, maybe 3 to 5 degrees, and I can actually get out to my colonies. I'll do an oxalic acid just to see what the mite drop is on my screen bottom boards, to see if there's a lot. If there is, and I'm like, okay, I better keep doing this. I better keep coming out and doing the full cycle, which is you want to kind of space it out I think it's 3 to 5 days. Again, for that full cycle of bees. So for about 3 weeks, you're doing treatment kind of thing. So it is very labor intensive, but it's very inexpensive for the physical product itself. So that's why I think oxalic is becoming such an integral tool for beekeepers. Are you using oxalic all winter long for your colonies?
No,
Okay.
because we get pretty cold, and I think that
Okay.
5 degrees and bees
Yeah.
at the entrance is kind of the indicator. That
Yes. Yeah. So true.
You don't want to fog them and then.
And then them be,
cluster.
yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And then it'd be freezing.
Yeah, and
like
it just
minus
doesn't
40.
work. They can't.
Yeah.
The oxalic acid doesn't penetrate the cluster. when
No.
it's too
Yeah.
tight.
When they're too tight, yes, so true. Yeah, you do need it to be like fairly warm. We've had really warm winters in Ontario lately, so we get away with it, I think, a lot easier. So yeah, those are also things to keep in mind when working with it. I also know beekeepers though that do use it like in mid-season. I've never done that, but I suppose you could. I just don't think you'd get great efficacy, but I guess if you went out repeatedly, like kept that labor up, I guess you could also use oxalic throughout the season. We had this Varrox Eddy. It's kind of like our auto. It has a battery application that is very nice to work with. I actually really did like working with this unit, but unfortunately supply is really, really difficult to get this out of Switzerland because this is a lithium ion battery, which you cannot ship via air. So it can only go via sea freight. So we've actually reduced supply running into 2026. They've also just updated how much you should be treating with, which this crucible is for maximum 2 grams. And now, like, I'm typically treating 3 to 4 grams. So on one single battery, I'm not able to treat as many colonies anymore. So this is going back into development to come out with something newer that's more adjusted for the new market. But so I'm not going to really go into detail on this one. But this was available. I think, Robert, you still have one maybe unit left, but yeah, it's all battery operated. It is lovely to work with. It's very expensive though. This is one of the more expensive tools to work with. I would say from like a sideliner point of view, it would make sense if you had like 50 colonies. It would be a great tool to maybe invest in. But I would wait until the new version comes out that is the bigger crucible so that you're able to treat more colonies basically on that single battery. Because otherwise you're kind of having to double treat, which just knocks down your battery life quite a bit. So, yeah, any questions on oxalic or Varrox?
When you treat, how quick do the mites die? Like, are they-
Fairly quick, like within that like 10 minutes or so, like you'll start to see drop on your bottom board. I normally wait at like a couple hours and then go out and kind of see what the full effect has been, because sometimes grooming needs to happen as well. Like Robert said, like during cluster, if they're tight in there, it can sometimes take a while just for anything to fall. And you also want to make sure that they're dead, not crawling around. But again, like I normally treat when they're like it's a little bit warmer, not when it's like too cold. So I don't have that, but yeah, it's fairly quick. Yeah.
One problem I've had with the Varrox is the fact that it melts our plastic frames.
Oh, which one? The original Varrox?
Yeah,
Yeah, this one?
yeah.
Yeah, so depending on your height of do you have screen bottom boards?
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes our screen bottom boards are a little like up, and if you can just go in and push them down a bit, then when you angle this in, you do have to double check, like, is it gonna touch the frames? So normally when you look like under the entrance of your hive, you can see the frames all in there, and you do wanna just make sure. I have a couple screen bottom boards that are a bit up, and I've had to really like push them down just so one of these can get in without touching the frames. But yeah, you do have to be careful of that like entrance kind of thing.
Yeah, I kind of chose to actually put this underneath the screen bottom board.
Oh.
However,
Yeah.
There's a lot of condensation of the vapors.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's not very effective either.
No, and like you would just lose. I feel like a lot of them. I can't say what it would do because I never tested it in a research yard, but yeah.
I just fill that cup right up to the top and
Okay.
anyway, hope for the best.
I know. I mean,
In a fogger?
sorry.
Can it be used in a fogger?
Oxalic, yeah, there's lots of different vaporizers out there. Robert might be like a better person to talk to about all those different types.
There's a very specific temperature that oxalic acid turns from a solid to a gas
Yeah.
in that sublimation stage, so it skips liquid altogether. And if you are off that mark, it doesn't turn into oxalic acid, so it just doesn't work. So if you're using an off-the-shelf fogger, like for insecticides or something like that, you have to be very careful to make sure that it hits at 230 degrees or 235 degrees. or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And anything off of that, it's not doing
Yeah.
If it's more than 235, if you're higher, you're better, or?
it. If you're,
It might burn, like it
yeah,
may
no,
not.
if you gas it higher, then it changes the chemistry of it.
Yeah.
So it sublimates at 235 or whatever. Yeah, don't quote me on that, but that's the logic behind the
Yeah.
actual units.
Yeah. And like for a typical 12-0, I think you're getting around 15 colonies on a full battery. Because again, as your battery kind of, if it's like about to die, it may not be able to reach that temperature. So yeah, it's normally about 15 colonies that you're able to kind of sublimate at that high temperature with the device. And then you'll start to see it. You'll know because there'll be a residue left over in your crucible if it didn't work the way it's supposed to. So it does kind of tell you what's happening in the moment, so you can kind of gauge of like, okay, my battery's probably dead and I need to get another battery or something like that too. You had a question?
I was just gonna say, so I had the same problem with wax melting.
Okay.
So what I did was, went to a dollar store and got a Betty Crocker cookie sheet, and it happens to fit exactly where the backsliding part.
Yes, okay.
So I put it on there and stuck it from the back and the
Oh, so where your screen bottom board, yeah, from behind. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
The only problem I had is if the dew point's really low, then it hits the screen,
Yeah,
it kind of comes down.
and comes down. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, welcome to beekeeping, right? We're all MacGyvers. It's amazing what we can come up with. Yeah, like I've heard people drilling into colonies, like creating holes. Like like there's lots of stuff. So yeah, I mean,
Definitely more expensive applicators that solve these problems.
Yes.
In the sub
Yes.
$200 range.
yeah.
This is what we're putting up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I will say, like, there is a lot available, like, people call them like Amazon vaporizers and stuff. Those are the ones that we start to hear feedback on quite quickly, that they're not reaching the optimal temperature because they're not really originally made for this. But, you know, they get in on this design and they sell a whole bunch, but they don't really work really well. So I would always recommend like go to the manufacturer that like has the beekeeping segments so that you know that you're getting like the right stuff. They test it, they have a research facility, all that stuff is good. So any other questions on the Varrox? We're gonna show you how they work out in the bee yard as well. So yeah, we'll get to see it kind of firsthand. Otherwise, I'll go into Apimil. I did already talk a little bit about this. So Apimil is an alternative for a traditional smoker, but it's also a pheromone suppressant. So again, our bees communicate with pheromones a lot. Whether that's, when you're probably taught when you first start to beekeep, when you're going to go into a colony, you have your smoker, you smoke your entrances, you let them know you're going to come in, all of that type of thing. That's all because we're trying to communicate with them through what they understand, which is pheromones. So Apimil is an alternative to that. It's all natural, and basically I use it predominantly. This year I've used it because we're in extreme drought, so I can't use my smoker because it would start like a forest fire. So I've just used it as an alternative. But normally I use it as if I have like any aggressive colonies that maybe I haven't pinched that queen yet. I will go in and use it, and I spray it all over myself. If maybe my kids are with me, they're not great at pulling frames out yet with it rolling bees, which we know can really anger bees. So when they pull a frame out, they've just got bees going everywhere. I will spray it all over so that the bees kind of like cool it on them, so that they're not gonna get kind of like attacked or anything. If I'm combining colonies, so at the end of the season, if I'm doing kind of looking at all of my colonies and saying like, yeah, that one's not going to survive the winter, it's just too small of a cluster, I'm going to combine these two colonies. I can spray Apimil on it just so those pheromones kind of merge, so that there's no issues. Or if I do a lot of walkaway splits in my yard as well, so I also use it for that reason. So taking bees from one colony, moving it into a new colony, introducing a queen. And again, so just making sure that when I'm introducing that queen, I'm spraying Apimil just so those pheromones are kind of suppressed for the time, just to get her going so they don't like maul her or do anything like that. So it's a really good tool for that reason. But the major one that people use it for is the stinging for aggressive colonies. I did go into quite a few bees this spring and last spring with some newer beekeepers with really like you couldn't get into the yard. They were like coming at your vehicle, aggressive. And we did just replace those queens finally, but sometimes that's hard. If you're a new beekeeper, that can be tough sometimes. So this was a good alternative to help out. Because you don't really get stung at all when you're using it. So it does really suppress that. It's just full, like I'll pass these around and people can smell it. It's just really lovely to smell. It's mostly just essential oils in there. So it's just a formula like that. So I typically just spray it on myself. I will spray it directly on the bees though if I'm doing any kind of rigorous work with them. But for the most part, I'm just using it on myself and just kind of getting them out of the way as like a smoke replacement. So lots of ways to use it, but it's become actually a pretty integral part of what we do day to day. So it does come in a concentrated bottle. This is just samples that everyone's going to be able to take home. But typically it comes in this concentrated bottle, and then when you're mixing it up, you can do whatever mixture you want. Like you could use this bottle rolling forward and just only ever use, like your 1 to 10 measure kind of thing. But if you wanted to mix up like a whole bunch per se, you could do like 100 milliliters of Apimil and 900 milliliters of water. That's a large amount. I wouldn't recommend it. I did it, and like the bottle is ginormous. It's really funny though to watch my kids try and carry this giant spray bottle around. So I wouldn't 100% recommend that amount unless you have a lot of colonies to go through. I do find a little goes a long way. You should use it within 4 to 6 weeks of mixing it up, but otherwise the concentrate lasts 3 years. And every bottle has a manufacturer date on it, so you can check that to whenever you purchase it kind of thing. Use within a month. That is all. Hey, I did pretty good for timing. We are going to go to the bee yards if there's no questions first. Yes.
I was just curious about this Apimil. Like, you spray it once and you can do your full inspection?
No, you use it like your smoker. Like, like I just did an inspection the other day, and I didn't really have a goal other than I just wanted to make sure they weren't honey bound. We're going through a really crazy time, and I just pulled honey supers, put them back on, but then within that day, they'd filled one brood box just full of nectar on me, and I'm like, great. So I really was just going in to find out, and I was just kind of using it as like get out of my way kind of situation. So you can continue to spray it, and you can spray it right on the frames. There's no residues to it. I would say if I'm extracting honey though, I wouldn't be spraying it right on my honey frames because I don't want like a lemongrassy on my honey frames. Like I don't want that being extracted. So it does go away after a certain point, but just when extracting, I wouldn't be doing, or when you're pulling honey, I wouldn't be doing that. So for brood and everything like that, but a lot of the time, like I'm kind of just, like spraying around them. And this is a pretty, like I used actually one of these ones, and it has a pretty nice wide spray. It's not like a direct spray. So also watch out with your sprayers. You can normally adjust them to make sure it's a nice fan rather than like a direct hit on them. But yeah.
I don't like to do like big inspections or any kind of rigorous beekeeping on a colony that I'm going to be treating within the same time period. So typically, I would do a few days in advance inspections and figure out what I need to do. And then I'm just going out and all I'm doing is treating the colonies at that time. That's kind of like across the board for all Varroa treatments, what you should be doing. It doesn't always work that way, and I understand that. But ideal world here, people. So again, normally I would use a smoker, but I could also use Apimil, and I'm just gonna be spraying this around the entrance just to let them know that I am coming in. And we've got our, now everyone beekeeps a little differently. I like to put my lids to the front of a colony, just because then I can lay things down in front of it. So, got pollen patties maybe you were feeding? So I always look at my inner covers, especially on like singles or colonies with only brood chambers in them, just to make sure the queen doesn't happen to be there. Same with my lid. Sometimes your inner covers might have this hole open, so they might also be on this lid. So I always just take a peek, what you're doing, making sure she's not down in there. Again, you might want to, clean off the top frames when you're going to be laying strips down. But this one actually looks pretty clean where I need to place them. So I probably won't do much there. I don't know if I can get that. You have a knife? Oh yes. A knife. Thank y'all.
Do you want, does Thymovar, does it need to have a certain size or strength
cluster? So the minimum is like a nuke size. So again, you can treat with a fairly small cluster, but you might want to have like a minimum of like 4 frames of bees in there, just to make sure that there is some kind of populace. Otherwise, I would probably cut my treatment down quite substantially. Which these wafers are quite customizable. So with this is a single brood chamber. So we're just gonna take one wafer. You can smell this. You have a vapor. You all have vapor on, but like you can smell this. It smells like thyme. So you're normally just taking this and you're just gonna split it in half for this colony size. You kind of want to go a couple centimeters outside that brood rearing zone. So you're going to be placing the strips if everyone, when you do, maybe I'm going to leave it open for a little bit. You can maybe come here and walk around. You can see where the cluster is, because every colony kind of does have a bit of a different cluster point. Sometimes it's in the middle, sometimes it's over to the left, over to the right. So you can kind of gauge where it's sitting. This one is kind of sitting right here. So I'm gonna probably put my Thymovar over onto that area, which is a little off center, just so that it's actually going to be penetrating. And then once I close up, all I'm doing is making sure this is a solid bottom board. I don't need to close a screen bottom board on it. It's already closed. I would make sure that this upper entrance is not open, but closed. And you're just laying this right on top. If you did have it open, again, it's not the end of the world. So it's not a big deal. And then you would just close up the hive. So if everyone wants to come and just look at the cluster, you want to maybe walk over here because those are open. And I'll just get out of the way here. Sorry. Just where all the bees are? Yeah. Oh yeah, cluster. Yeah. So a cluster is this football. This is what we call a cluster. So you can kind of see here, like a cluster kind of looks like a football in its like main season. You get like a really booming hive like right now. Like this is like, as Robert said, this is a bit of a builder hive. It needs a little help. Like my hives right now, because it's mid-season, are framed like edges to edges, and they're filled. But like in the spring, maybe you might have a colony that looks like this, and the cluster is kind of in a football like this. So that's where we see. So in the winter time when they're clustering, the queen would be in the center of that cluster, and they're doing their rotation of this circle around the queen, and they do thermogenesis, which is a vibration of their thorax to keep everyone warm. So that's the cluster point, is right in there. So when you're treating, you want to treat in that cluster, in that brood rearing zone.
These ones, we put queens in them on the 12th
Of June.
Of June?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the other thing with pheromone masking products. So like anything like formic acid with thymol, they smell. They're very smelly. So if you did just requeen, I would wait at least a full brood cycle of her laying to get her pheromones out there before using something like using a Varroa control product, because it can mask her scent, and sometimes they'll end up balling her and things like that just because they think that she's not doing her job, she's not viable or something, when really it's just the treatment that's overpowering her scent. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Yeah, so this is a double brood chamber. So we've got 2 broods here. So again, we're just going in, and each one of these packets has 5 of these strips. So you're just taking 2 of these out, and you're laying it. And again, you don't have to crack down to the bottom. You can just place these right on top. So you might want to spray a little bit just to get them out of the way, so they go down when they spray. And then again, you're kind of like laying these a little bit outside the brood rearing area. And again, you're just closing up, entrance closed. You're making sure no screen bottom board, it's a solid bottom board, so we're good. And then you can just close up from there. That's all she wrote, folks. It's pretty simple. Okay. Yeah, you want to give her a little bit of time. I don't find, like, I don't use it too often right on the frames, unless I've got like an extremely aggressive colony. But again, maybe you pinched a queen, you just requeen. Yeah, like don't go spraying her too much unless you're trying to mask the old queen's pheromones to let the new queen's pheromones take over, which will take 21 plus days. If she's a mated queen, then she'll start laying, within like maybe a couple days. If she's not a mated queen, like if they've raised their own, you need to give her a little bit of time to have a mating flight, and then it's 21 days of brood rearing kind of thing to get that full cycle. So it's a bit of time on your hands there. Yeah. All right, we can do some oxalic. You want to do those ones?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
The Varrox, really quite bulletproof. Very sturdy, there's no moving parts, which makes it quite durable. The first time that you use it, you want to do a test, like an open air test, with oxalic acid and your battery, and time how long it takes for the oxalic acid to sublimate and be done. And then every treatment, you're just using a timer to see how long you want to plug it in. So I find that it's about 2 minutes 45 seconds or so, depending on how much you put in with my particular battery. If you don't want to lug around a car battery, then these rechargeable booster packs are really great. You got a handle, the charging cable is small and built right in, and makes it really easy to use and important. Otherwise, you can do like booster cables on your car if you're just doing a few.
So this is a double bird chamber. So you're gonna, and this is a 2-gram crucible. So you're gonna use this as your measuring cup, there and about, and you're gonna do, thank you, 2 grams of oxalic for this. And typically you would do this probably twice to get a full treatment now, because we've upped our dosage to 4 grams for a double box typically now. And then you're going to be doing black to black, red to red. Oh, there we go. And you're just going to be entering this into the colony, and it sits like this. You're going to take your rag. There you go, Robert.
In far enough that it doesn't get hot for that.
Yeah. Okay. And then.
Well, I don't have any top extras on, so.
Yeah.
So now we just turn it on.
Now you just turn it on.
And we just hope that it does a good job.
So normally you can see like a bit of vapor, I find, like coming out. So you kind of know, like, I guess it depends on how many cracks and openings your hives may have. Because I run screen bottom boards, they are a lot more airous. Obviously, there's a lot more than a solid bottom board. So I do get some vapor seepage, which is why I think PPE is so important. Because you want to make sure that you're always being health conscious. But yeah, you want to have your phone with your timer, 2 to 2.5 minutes. Then you're going to be pulling out the Varrox, dipping it in some water to clean off the crucible, cool the device down, and you're just stuffing that and then leaving it for 10 minutes and carrying on to the next one. So you can see some of the vapor coming out here. And obviously the bees are like, what the heck? So you're repeating this. It's not like a one-time thing, like a formulated product is. It's a repetitive, labor-intensive kind of tool. So you're going out every 3 to 5 days and repeating this on every colony over the life cycle of a bee. Timer's up. So.